All right, here we go with mat training and relaxation work. So this is actually some really fabulous work. Before we get into the demonstrations, I just want to go over a few things. So oftentimes dogs go from 0 to 100 and they can go very quickly. So 0 being when they're super calm, or maybe doing a quiet time activity, or even when they're sleeping, and then 100 being zoomies, doing a really fun activity, hyperactive, bouncing off the walls, things like that. So a lot of times dogs don't automatically come equipped with what I like to call a dimmer switch. So we do have to teach them how to move through those levels of going from very calm, low energy activities and kind of ticking up the scale to some activities that might be a little bit more exciting, a little bit more stimulating. So like some medium level activities all the way up to the higher level activities. So we do have to help them learn some impulse control and be able to move through those layers. Also, we as humans, we mean well, but we can accidentally add to the situation and hype our dogs up. So think about like when you get home from work, you're so excited to see your dog's really excited to see you, and you're like, blah, 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 oh my gosh, we're so excited to see each other. So actually what that's doing is it's making a positive association between an event, you coming home, and them being excited. So it's no surprise that every single time you do come home, they're super excited. So it doesn't matter if you're excited or they're not, or you're excited or not excited, they've already made the positive association to, you're coming home, I'm excited, things like that. So oftentimes we mean well, but we kind of hype them up. So, okay, let's talk about some of the benefits of mat training and relaxation. So it's a great replacement behavior or an alternative behavior. So it can be a really good instead of. So someone is at the door. Ooh, that's exciting. You know what? Go to your mat. Humans are eating a meal. Ooh, that's something that's interesting. The dog maybe wants to participate in that. You know what? Go to your mat. Barking too much. Something's going on outside. You know what? That's okay. Thank you very much. Go relax on your mat. Need a quiet place to settle? Go relax on your mat. The great thing about doing any sort of mat and relaxation work is you can use something that is portable. So this can be anything. It can be a yoga mat or part of a yoga mat. It can be a bath rug. It can be a towel. It can be a blanket. It can be a dog bed. It can even be something that is raised. So when I do my group training with dogs, I use raised dog beds and the play structures for some of the dogs so they can position themselves on those things. A couple of recommendations for anything that you use that's going to be portable is I would make sure that it's non-slip, or it's something that can adhere to a slippery surface. So like on wood floors, blankets or towels might not be the best option, but part of a yoga mat or a bath mat would be a really good option. Also, keep in mind the material that it's made out of and the texture. Some dogs are really sensitive to that. So I worked with a puppy that was having a really hard time figuring out how to relax on a mat. Mom was using a bath mat that had like a Mickey Mouse pattern on it, so portions of it were raised. And we kind of thought he was just struggling and didn't really know how to relax, but actually we came to find out that he had some texture sensitivity to the actual bath mat. So we just swapped it out for something else, and voila, he learned the art of doing nothing, which basically that's what mat and relaxation work is. So it's teaching your dog literally the art of doing nothing. What we're doing right now is nothing. We're just hanging out on the mat, being calm. So it can also help you work on boundaries. So I don't want you to leave this mat right now. You need to stay on the boundary. Works on impulse control, is a really good way to work on an uncued stay. And then when your dog has learned that the value is on the mat, because it's a relaxation place for them, you can actually start working on an uncued stay, and then you can build your duration, your distance, and then your distraction. So lots of great uses for mat training and relaxation work. And now let's get into the demonstrations. This is Brody and Goldie. So as you can see, I have 2 different spots for them, because when you're working with multiple dogs, you want each of them to have a spot. So we're doing a dog bed, and then we're working on the ottoman. And what I'm doing is, dogs are so used to our hands being the magical producers of food. So as you can see, they're rather fixated on my hands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the value from my hand to putting the value directly on the mat. So I'm not going to feed them directly out of my hand. I'm going to take my treats or my food and place them directly on the mat. So this is helping them make a positive association to the mat. I can also help lure them there with the food, and they're also starting to realize that they are only receiving the rewards when they are on the mat. So if they happen to come off of the mat, that's when the rewards happen to stop. This is Nala. Nala actually has a pretty good understanding of working on the mat. So what I'm doing with Nala is I am having her specifically work on a towel, because towels can be a source of fun for Nala. So we're helping her learn how to relax on a towel. And part of Nala's training plan, we are working on some more cooperative care things. So you'll see us work on a few different skills. But one thing that we want to make sure that we do is, again, we're going to take the food and we're going to place it directly on the mat. But we're not necessarily going to cue our dog for a behavior. So the purpose of the introduction to the mat is to help your dog learn that it is a place for them to station on. So we want them to get that stationing behavior down first. Then when they start to realize that it's beneficial for them to hang out on the mat, that is where you can either wait for them to offer an additional behavior, such as sit or down, or once they are remaining on the mat without having a lot of additional guidance from you, that's when you can start cueing additional behaviors like sit and down. And at this point, we're not necessarily going to introduce any sort of verbal cue just yet. So the verbal cue that I like to use is place, but you can also use mat or settle or relax. But we want to make sure that they get the behavior down first. They're successful with actually finding their way to the mat, and then you can start to add in the verbal cue. So you want to make sure they have a pretty thorough understanding of where they're supposed to be, and that the food is only going to happen on the mat. And you know that your dog has actually perfected the art of doing nothing when, as you saw at the beginning of the video, Nala was able to find her way over to the towel or the mat. She got right into down position, and then she is actually demonstrating what is called a relax down. So that's where she's rolled up onto one hip instead of in the down position that kind of looks like a sphinx pose. So your dog has achieved ultimate relaxation when they are in relaxed down, which means they're rolled up onto one hip, as Nala is here in this video. This is Ari and Gus. So Ari is in the background on top of the play structure, and Gus is in the front on the ground. So I've worked with Ari on this a lot more than I've worked with Gus. So you'll see that Ari has a little bit more understanding of it. So also, Ari has more success when he works on top of the play structure. When he's down on the floor, he sometimes has a tendency to wander. So that's why he is up on top of the play structure. So you can see in the front with Gus, so while he is in down, and he was able to find down on his own, he is not necessarily in that relaxed down position that we're looking for, but that's totally okay. I'm not being super picky on that right now. So as you can see, I'm starting to shift my position just a little bit, not moving too fast, but with these dogs, since they do have some exposure to it already, I can move a little bit faster. So I'm going from sitting on the floor to crouching to now standing. Now I'm starting to add a little bit more movement with my feet. So these dogs are pretty good with the duration that they can stay in position, and they don't necessarily have to be in down. If they were sitting or standing, that would be totally fine too. But now, since we have the duration down, I can start working on a little bit more distance, and now we can start working a little bit more on distraction. So that means that I am going to start moving around a little bit more. If I happen to do any sort of movement or get a distance where they are uncomfortable with that and they happen to get up and leave the mat, no big deal. I'm simply going to help them find their way back to the mat, and we will just keep working on the skills. But as you can see, I am either tossing the food directly to them, or I am placing the rewards on the mat if I am close enough to it. So I'm starting to back up, add a little bit more distance. The boys are actually doing so fabulous. I'm starting to move around a little bit more. These guys have it on lockdown. They're doing really great. And just remember, if your dogs happen to get up for any reason, oh, look at that relax down that Gussie just did. If your dogs happen to get up for any reason, just take it a few steps back, go back to where they were previously successful, and that's okay. Gus heard something outside, so he felt they needed to get up and go investigate, but he came right back. That's totally fine. So he's like, all right, cool, no danger, we're good. So then he struggled a little bit with that and got up. So as you can see, I'm returning back to the basics. So now I'm going to return back to sitting on the floor with him and allowing him to work in that standing position if that's what he is comfortable doing. So Ari is cool hanging out on the play structure. So I'm just going to keep working with Gus and be patient with him and see if he can go back into maybe either a sit or a down. But it's totally fine if he doesn't. Remember, the main goal here, there it is. Good boy. The main goal here is I want them to just remain on the mat at first. We can always clean up the sit and the down at a later time.